My name is Mackenzie Johnston. I am from Brewster, Nebraska. I ranch down there with my family. I also work for Special Cowboy Moments on RFD TV and the Cowboy Channel. And then many of you probably know I produce a daily cattle industry update that I post on my personal Facebook page every day.
Hi, I'm Carrie Stodheim. I'm the editor of Tri-State Livestock News. We're based out of Belfouche. A lot of us at Tri-State work from home, including myself. So my husband and I actually ranch north of here on the North Dakota-South Dakota state line. I'm just across the line into North Dakota. So yes, I am a North Dakotan. I grew up on a ranch in that area. Also, I went to South Dakota State University and got my degree in ag journalism with an animal science minor. I did an internship with the American Angus Association when I was in college, and have done a fair amount of freelancing, I guess, in the last few years. Also, I worked for the South Dakota Stock Growers Association for several years, where I got to know a lot of you, and have been working for Tri-State since 2012. So I've seen a few different sides, I guess, of print media, and so excited to talk to you all about it because I agree that it's an important tool for you to use in getting your ideas across. So thanks for having me.
I'm Jim Mundorf. I'm from McClelland, Iowa, which is southwest Iowa, not too far from Omaha, Nebraska. And my family, we farm and have a small cow-calf herd. And I run a business called the Drover House, and then I also started the website Lonesome Lands, where I write and do different videos. It's not working?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You guys can hear them okay, can't you? No. Uh-oh, we can't hear them. Hold it closer.
Okay.
Hold it closer.
Sorry about that.
Oh, there we go. Got it. Okay. So, big ag media seems to always tell a cycle of, or always tell a story of cattle market cycles and seems to kind of always paint this rosy picture, and they truly shy away from putting a microscope on our problems and solutions. Why do you think that is? Why do you think they only want to paint a rosy picture of this cattle industry?
So I was thinking about this, and the example that always comes up for me is a report that came out not long after the Holcomb beef plant fire, and then they had the meeting in Omaha. And Farm Journal did a report, a video report, and they call it, I think it was U.S. Farm Report is what they called it. And the title of it was Cattle Ranchers or Cattle Producers React to Market Disruption or something like that. And who they interviewed for their report was 3 college professors, the CEO of the NCBA, and the editor of Drover's magazine. And so the title of the report was Cattle Producers React, but they couldn't find one single cattle producer to interview for their story. And the most important part, I felt like, the first time I ever saw it, and internet ads always change on websites, but the first time I ever saw it, I watched it and I looked over in the corner on the side, and it was an ad for NCBA National Convention. And so that just gives you an example of how Farm Journal, who owns Drover's magazine, is pretty much bought and paid for. NCBA takes out full-page ads. Beef Checkoff takes out full-page ads in Farm Journal magazines. And, you know, Cargill, I know, advertises a lot. So really the beef packers and those who represent them kind of have big corporate ag media. They've got them bought and paid for, in my opinion.
So, yeah, kind of along with that, I guess as I was thinking about this question too, what came to mind to me is my experience in college in a general way, and that would be that I feel as a rule, not always, of course there's always exceptions, but as a rule, the land-grant universities seem, since I've been in college and I graduated in 01, at that time and probably before that, to really kind of want to diminish the producer themselves and to highlight the people, the other ag business opportunities that there are, whether it's promoting a product or selling, mineral feed, whatever it is. They sort of make you feel, I guess, in college like you're more successful if you're doing something else in agriculture versus just being a producer. And so I feel like that spills over into the ag communications departments, of course. And so as a graduate, an ag journalist graduate of a land-grant university, I think probably a lot of people in my line of work just kind of automatically tend, like Jim said, to want to reach out to somebody that's an expert, whether they're an economist or an expert in nutrition or those kinds of things. And you'll probably hear me say this a lot while I'm up here, but they forget that ranchers are experts in their fields. And so some of it I don't think is really on purpose, as far as not telling the rancher's story. I think a lot of these media spokesmen think that they are telling the story, but they just aren't. Another, I guess, piece of this, I think, is that, like, Tri-State, for example, I think we're pretty unique in the fact that a lot of our employees actually do work full-time in the livestock industry. And I think that obviously gives you a totally different perspective than somebody that grew up in another business but just had an interest in agriculture. You are seeing, you yourself are living the struggles, your neighbors are living the struggles, you're helping them. So you're seeing the stories that need to be told, and you're understanding when things are rosy, when they're not, and that kind of thing. Obviously, media is supported by advertising, so some media, I think, feel more obligated to try to cater to their advertisers. We have really made a strong effort, especially since I've been at Tri-State, to maintain integrity on the editorial side, that we don't necessarily try to tell a story in order to get an advertiser. We tell a story if there's a story, and we believe that our readers want to read good stories and they want to read the news, and we're going to sell more advertising if people are interested in reading our paper. So it's worked out for us, but I think we can all see that that's not always the case with all media, unfortunately. Yeah, I guess, like I said, I just think that being a producer yourself really helps you be in touch with what's going on in the industry and helps you have a desire to tell the true story, whatever that story is. Not try to have a agenda with your story, but let the story be told by the people living it.
Yeah, so I'm going to reiterate what Carrie just said. That's the difference between Tri-State and other publications like Tri-State. They actually have people with skin in the game, and that makes all the difference. You talk about Drovers or the Beef Magazine, or even breeding publications. We got the Angus, we got Hereford, we got Red Angus. So many of those publications, in my opinion, it goes back to money. They're scared to step on toes, and they're incredibly biased, in my opinion, too. How often do you pick up a Drovers and you see them talk about what we've talked about here over the past couple of days? I sure haven't. Or we can talk about the Beef Magazine also. They do the same. In my opinion, they're biased most of the time. Like Carrie said, there's always an exception to everything. They will have an article in there that is fair and does tell the story, but 9 times out of 10, they're going to tell that other side of the story because it comes down to money, in my opinion. Like Jim was talking about, we got big NCBA ads in there. We got the beef checkoff. We got all of that impacting them. And they sure aren't scared to tell that other side of the story. We can talk about Drovers. We can talk about Kate Miller, her publications in there. They just cut cattle producers together, just cut them apart, all of her pieces. So they're scared to step on toes, and their allegiance lies with that agenda, with the money.
I probably should have started it with this question, but what makes you so interested in telling this real, raw side of our industry? The problems, the solutions, the nitty gritty. Why are you three so interested in representing these real producers?
So I didn't start out writing. I just started doing this 2-3 years ago, and I feel like I went years of saying, you know what somebody should say? And finally I kind of got to the point where I was like, okay, I did go to school for it. I had for communications, and I've always had an interest in media, so I thought, I might as well say it or try to get it out there. And that's really where it comes from as far as, I grew up on a farm. We have a cow-calf herd. My dad had a feedlot when I was a kid, and so I've seen all this over the years. And so that's where.
Excellent.
Way to throw me under the bus. Same. I'm sure we're all going to have the same story here in a way. Like I said, I grew up on a ranch. I have a passion for the livestock industry. When I've learned a lot in college, but I've learned a lot more since college. When I was going to school for ag journalism and ag communications, my dream was to tell the story of beef and get people to buy more beef, and then, we were all going to make more money. And I learned since then of a lot more about the industry, and I guess a lot of different things. I learned that ranchers are independent and they are doing the job that they want to do, and they're doing it very well, but they aren't good necessarily at telling their stories. They don't even want to tell their stories most of the time. So I learned that somebody needs to help them with that. And then I also learned the big picture of how independent agriculture affects our communities as well as ourselves and our families. And, I know we all talk about this. We've all seen the ranch next to us get swallowed up by the farm next door. And instead of having, 25 kids in the class at school, the school, maybe there's 10, maybe there is no school anymore, and there is no grocery store in town anymore, and there's no hardware store, and, so I think I personally just have a passion for helping rural America revitalize, and in order to do that, we have to be profitable. We have to give generations the opportunity to make a living. This is a hard job. It's a hard life to live. It's very rewarding, but we can't do it if we can't make a profit at it. And again, just like we talked about, I live it every day, and so I have, I guess, another incentive to help people make a living, and that's my ultimate goal.
So I guess I come from a long line of ranchers, and the fact that I have skin in the game myself, I think that's where my passion comes from. And I know that so many other people, so many of you folks out here, you guys don't have time to, write an article or jump on social media and talk about your struggles and such. So I guess for me, it's just a little bit that I can do for the industry that I love so much. And Carrie talked about our rural communities. If we lose the cattle industry, if we lose agriculture, our rural communities will go right with it. And our rural areas are the backbone of this country, and when that goes, our country goes also. So it all just kind of comes back to what I truly love in this country, and I think you have to go down fighting. And we're in a situation right now in this cattle industry where it's a make or break deal. So we've got to tell our story, and it's great to have folks like Carrie and Jim telling the story.
So Mackenzie summed it up best, skin in the game. And we do tend to be pretty critical of our media, but it should not ever be a blanket statement, because we do have absolutely some good media outlets that are representing the independent cattle industry, like these three up here. And so we never want to make, that blanket statement. So at RCAF, we're about solutions. We can identify the problems, but we've also got solutions. So address our audience of cattle producers here in talking about how they can use their local and regional media as tools for spreading awareness about the real, the raw, the nitty-gritty, the struggles and solutions of our industry.
So I guess a few different ideas here. First off, I would encourage all of you to just build friendships with your local media, whether that is radio or your hometown newspaper. It doesn't have to be a livestock newspaper by any means. Just build friendships, visit with the staff if you see them, at the grocery store, the sale barn, or whatever it is. It's kind of like any other friendship. If you only call them when you need something, then that's how they're going to feel about you. So there's no reason to not just establish that relationship. Not only will they, probably be more interested when you do call them, but also it builds credibility for you just as a human being. And they will, especially I found this out when I lived in Rapid City and worked for the South Dakota Stock Growers Association. Several of our members that lived in the area would build really good relationships with the TV news stations, and it helps those media as well, the ones that are not livestock oriented. It gives them somebody to contact when they do have a question, and so you might make a friend with them, and totally out of the blue, they might give you a call and have questions for you about whatever the issue of the day is. So those relationships can be really important. I guess just if and when you do get contacted by media, they might want an interview with you. Don't be nervous. Just, share your story. You have a great story to tell. You are the expert in your business. I remember, when I worked for the stock growers, a good friend, Larry Nelson, I don't think he's here, I haven't seen him, from Harding County. He was the one the first time that pointed that out to me. He said, ranchers are the only people that are told that they're not experts in their own business. And that's absolutely not true. You're very credible. Share your story. Whether they're wanting to ask you about a particular political issue, or maybe they're calling to ask you about how the blizzard affected you or something like that. Just, share your story. Be honest. I guess I'm not sure how much of this to go into. I can't remember what
You can keep going. One of the things that Carrie and I have talked about is letters to the editor. That is kind of became a little bit, a forgotten tool that we really do have. So Carrie, talk to them about what's the ideal, word limit on letters to the editor. What should that look like? Talk about that.
Okay. I agree. I think letters to the editor are really useful tools that you all can use to get a specific point across. Every newspaper is going to have a different set of standards. At Tri-State, we ask that you would keep it up to 400 words or less, which still gives you quite a bit of room to write. Obviously, you're going to want to keep your letter livestock related. Sometimes we get letters that don't have anything to do with the cattle business, and so we don't usually print those because we figure there's other media outlets that can handle that. But keep it pointed. Explain in your letter why, or maybe just in your email, why this paper's readers are going to care about this issue that you're writing about. And then after you have submitted the letter, feel free to follow up with a phone call or an email to the editor, especially if maybe you sent it and a week or two has gone by and you haven't seen it print. Just feel free to contact that media outlet and just ask, did you get my letter? If they say yes, then ask, are you interested in printing it? If they say no, then of course you want to find out why, and hopefully they'll share that with you. Maybe you need to shorten it up, or whatever the case is. Be clear, be specific, be professional. Don't throw dirt, I guess, is just my advice. Be polite. Just use your nice person attitude that you would throughout life. I guess getting back a little bit too to what we were talking about, a couple other ideas. If you do get interviewed for an actual story, be comfortable sharing pictures of yourselves, or let them take pictures. That's helps out the print publication. And I guess one other thought as far as the letters to the editor that I jotted down is don't give up. If you write a letter and they don't print it, or maybe you send it, you can send the same letter to several publications if you want. And then it's kind of up to that paper. If they see it print somewhere else, they may not want to print it, which is fine. But don't give up. If you've written a letter and it didn't get printed, don't get mad and throw your sucker in the dirt. You can try again on the next issue or whatever it is. So, just be persistent. They're probably not going to print every letter that you send. So, just try different avenues.
Mackenzie, what do how would you tell producers to use their local media as a tool?
Well, I would say just don't be scared to reach out. I'm just sitting down and writing a letter. That's kind of how I got started, as you all know. Thank God for Tri-State Livestock News. They published my story, and then they started off by publishing a piece that I wrote about Brazilian beef imports. So, if you got something to say, do not be scared to say it. That's the biggest thing. I think, like Carrie said, keep it professional, and don't throw dirt. I could probably take some tips from her, but you can't be scared to step up and say something. And social media is a great tool. If you got something to say, get on there, say it. Be ready for people to come after you, but that's just part of the game. You're going to have haters no matter what. People are going to come for you one way or another. We got to tell our story, and if we want to make any kind of a change, this is where it starts, telling our story.
Jim, any thoughts on how producers can use their local media?
Yeah, I would just say, along with what Mackenzie said, it's hard to kind of get the confidence up to put something out there because there's always that chance of rejection. But you should also remember that it's these people's job to fill space and fill airtime, and so they're always looking for stories. And Karina just said not to make blanket statements, but I would say after going through journalism school and going to college with those people that they are, for the most part, lazy. And if you follow the news at all, it's mostly politics and national politics. And the reason that is because it's easy. They don't have to go out and get a story. So if you can get them a story and kind of lay it in their lap and show them, I guess because I'm the internet guy here too, there's been a lot of viral videos about the cattle industry and the cattle market, and if you can take those and show someone at your local news or your local newspaper how much interest there are after they've been shared tens of thousands of times, that'll also help to show them that there is interest in these issues.
So that leads me into my next question. What is a news tip? What is news? What is not news? And how do I share a news tip with my local media?
Well, since I'm the one that suggested that question, I suppose I should take it on. There again, every media outlet's going to be different. So I guess, and this is what I would suggest to you all, is again, you're building these friendships with your media personnel. So ask them, what would you like from me? What do you consider a useful news tip? Keep that line of communication open. As for me, I am open to any and all ideas. I love getting ideas from our readers. I don't get nearly enough of them, so please feel free to share. And like Jim said, it does not have to be politics. That kind of happens to be my area that thrills me anyway. So if you can throw other ideas out at me, that's always very much appreciated. Email, texting, phone calls, any of those are great ways to reach out. Use Facebook Messenger, whatever way you have to reach the newspaper editors or radio, whoever it is that you're contacting. If you, I'm going to save that for later.
I think you knocked it out of the park.
I would say, we're always talking about the gap widening between urban and rural communities, and that's something that you ask what is news. It's getting to the point where if you like, I have in-laws that live in town. They live in Sioux City, Iowa. They have absolutely no clue what goes on, or before they met me and started coming out of the farm and learning, and they're very interested. And so really what goes on in agriculture is news for most people, because they don't have any idea, and they find it incredibly interesting. So
That is true.
that's something to as far as going into having confidence and taking these stories to people. I mean, for you and me, what you guys do every day isn't breaking news, but for someone who's never seen it, it is, and it's really interesting. So
I'm going to go ahead and have you three kind of collect your final thoughts, and while you're doing that, I want to talk about a few other steps that we would really like our RCAF members to really take note of and help us with this year. RCAF doesn't have a media list of every single newspaper, radio station, TV station in all these rural communities. And so we really lean on our members to make sure that you are funneling our news release, our press releases, our event notices, and those kinds of news pieces onto your local media. We've done the hard work of packaging the news, of presenting it. If you can just even click forward on that email to your local radio station, newspaper, and don't throw your sucker in the dirt when they don't, run it the first time. Maybe you need to make a call and say, hey, this is really important news to the cattle producers in our area. I would really appreciate if you would run this RCAF press release, okay? We got to build some relationships a little bit and nurture those relationships. And they're not going to run every single one you send. I just know that. Let me just prepare you for that. So, but at some point, they're going to say, wow, this apparently is important because we keep getting this RCAF news. You can also call the RCAF office with those email addresses of your local news outlets, and Carrie can add them to our media list just to make sure that we're sending them. But it really does come down to you. They want to know what their local readers, their local listeners want to listen to, read, and so tell them, and funnel that right to them. So that's print and radio. The other thing is social media. Please help share anything that RCAF puts out on their social media platforms, because as we build that social media base, we're going to reach more producers, more consumers, more legislators in their offices, and build more of a coalition to get something done. So let's wrap up with some final thoughts on this topic of producers connecting with their media, and we'll just go on down the line. Jim, do you want to start?
Yeah, I guess we've always been told share your story, and I think that's important, but I think it's important to actually share your personal story. I think what makes a lot of people roll their eyes or stop paying attention is when you say, well, here's what's happening in agriculture, instead of here's what's happening to me. And if you get an RCAF press release and you want to forward it on, this is how this affects me, and then this is the press release. And I think that creates a lot more interest than here's what's happened in the industry, instead of here's what's happening, in your backyard.
Excellent.
I would definitely agree with that. And I would really reiterate what Karina said too, as far as, again, building friendships with your local media. To be totally honest, most of your media outlets near you are going to give more credence to a news release that you forward from RCAF than one that they get directly from RCAF, because they see that, okay, my local readers are interested in this. It's not just some random group from Billings. So that's actually is going to be very meaningful. If you have events in your area that you want them to know about and there maybe is not a news release for you to share, just write one up, and it doesn't have to be anything fancy. The date, time, location, Any specific details, share those, share a picture if you have one before and after the event. A follow-up is great too. Photos are very much appreciated with cut line information that identifies the people in the pictures. And I guess one other tip I wanted to share, again, if you do get contacted for an interview, like Jim said, be yourself. Tell your personal story. Tell why this specific issue affects you, how it might affect your kids or your dream for your ranch or your desire for, what you're hoping to happen with your ranch 20 years down the road. Tell that story. Don't be afraid to ask the writer if you can review the story. That is their right. They might tell you yes, they might tell you no. I'm guessing most of the time they'll say yes, that's no problem. That should give you more confidence as far as not feeling like you're going to be misquoted. Offer help to the writer if there's other sources that you know of that might be helpful. Maybe you don't feel like you're totally an expert in nutrition, but you have a neighbor or a contact that is, you could share that with them. Again, just be honest. Oh, and if you are in an interview situation and the interview gets done and maybe later that day or the next day or whatever you think of something that, oh shoot, I should have told him that, just call him back and tell him or email or whatever. And they as a writer, I want to get the story. I want to get your story. I want to share it in the way that you want it to be shared. So I'm not trying to, make it anything other than that. So if there's something you can add or whatever, just add it, let us know. Just, again, be confident and know that your story is important, and it might be the story that somebody reads that makes a difference for this industry. So it really is important that you are willing to talk to media and be open about how things are affecting you as a rancher.
So I'm just going to reiterate what these two said. When you tell your story, we got to make it personal. We got to share what's really going on our operations, how we're struggling, how the markets aren't fair. We gotta tell our story at the end of the day, and we got to make it personal. And you can't be scared to step out there and say it. You don't know what kind of impact you can have. I know that from personal experience. You got to put yourself out there. You got to be ready to take some blows because the trolls are out there. There's people that are going to cut you down. But at the end of the day, we have to make our voices heard if we want to make a difference.